What's up, you guys? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Danielle Hallen, and I am back with another true crime video. And today's case is very current and wildly devastating. Today, we're going to be speaking about a case that needs as much attention as possible because it involves a 6-year-old little boy named Noel Rodriguez Alvarez that's been missing from Everman, Texas since the last week of October in 2022. However, an investigation into his disappearance was not opened until 6 months later in March 2023, like the very end of March. So we're talking just over a month ago, because it seems no one really knew or reported that Noel was missing. The details are very muddy and complicated. Local authorities, the FBI, Homeland Security, all have been working tirelessly this entire time to try to find Noel and unravel the suspicious details around his disappearance. And unfortunately, at this point, it is believed that Noel is no longer alive, and authorities need all the help they can possibly get from the public to get to the truth of what actually happened to him, and also to locate his parents, who have since fled the country along with their 6 other children. So as a bit of a background, so you can understand the family dynamics a little bit, Noel is one of 10 children born to 37-year-old Cindy Rodriguez Singh. And at the time of Noel's disappearance, Cindy had custody of 7 out of her 10 children, including Noel. And her eldest 3 are the ones that had actually gone off to live with her mother, their grandparents, under some sort of agreement. Now, Noel in particular required a higher level of care than his other siblings because he has multiple developmental disorders, social disorders, and he also has chronic lung disease that can sometimes require oxygen. So it was just a very different level of care, and it was crucial that Noel went to frequent doctor's appointments to manage this care and ensure that he was the healthiest he possibly could be. At the time of Noel's disappearance, as well as for the past decade, Noel's family has been living on a property owned by a man named Charles Parson, who is of no relation. Cindy actually met Charles Parson when she was going through the grocery store. She was a struggling single mother at the time, and they ended up striking up a conversation and realizing they had some shared struggles in life. And so they kind of came up with this agreement where they would help each other out. Cindy would cook for him, and he eventually ended up giving Cindy and her children a roof over their heads, because at this point in time, it is my understanding that Cindy was living out of her car. So Cindy and the kids moved into the 2 empty bedrooms within Charles' home with the agreement that she would not pay rent but would contribute in other ways. So Cindy would typically buy groceries, she would cook a lot of the meals, and she would also help take Charles to and from doctor's appointments. And over time, this ended up becoming more of a permanent situation, with Charles basically becoming like family. And all of the different interviews that you can find of Charles over the past month and a half, he refers to himself as the children's godfather. He even planned on having Cindy and her family inherit his home once he was gone because he had no one else to give it to. So this kind of altered her plans when she ended up meeting a man named Arshdeep Singh and got married and pregnant with a set of twins. So when this all occurred within the past 2 years, I don't have a solid time frame for any of this. The decision was made that instead of moving off into a larger home, now that, the family was growing, they were going to purchase a shed, place it on the back of Charles' property, and convert it into a livable space for their family to extend past the original home. So there are 2 beds in the shed. There is electricity, there's air conditioning, and so some of the family lived there while they also remained in the 2 bedrooms within the home. And so this brings us to a few months ago when all of this chaos and confusion started. March 20th, 2023, Everman Police Department arrived at this home on Wisteria Drive in Everman, Texas, to perform a welfare check, specifically on 6-year-old Noel, after an anonymous call of concern was placed into CPS. Now, while the details of this call have not been revealed, understandably, this is a very current and ongoing situation, it was important enough to warrant a check. But when authorities arrived at the home, all the other children were there, but Noel was nowhere to be found. However, according to his mother, Cindy, there was a very plausible explanation to this. Cindy was very forthcoming with authorities, and she explained to them that Noel had actually been taken recently to live with his biological father in Mexico. The family dynamic was a bit complicated. Cindy had just given birth to twins the past October, and Noel needed more direct care than could be given to him at the time. So the decision was made that Noel would go and live with his father. And at this point, upon speaking to Cindy, there was no indication that something more may be going on. From everything that I have seen, again, she was very cooperative. She was handing over all sorts of information like addresses and phone numbers. And there also was no legal boundary being crossed at the time when it came to Noel going to live with his father. It was not going against any court agreements or anything like that. But CPS actually began an investigation simply to corroborate what Cindy claimed, which is a pretty typical step for them to take. However, it was even more important to do so here because this was actually not the first time that CPS had been involved with this family. Cindy had a history of, quote, extensive, end quote, alcohol-related crimes. One of the more recent crimes occurred back in 2020, so not too long ago, when Cindy wrapped her car around a tree, drinking and driving, with her children in the back seat. So obviously, this landed her a felony DWI because unfortunately, this was not the first time something like this had happened. And so she was given 10 years of probation. And because of her children's involvement, custody was temporarily taken from Cindy, and all of the children, including Noel, were placed into foster care for roughly a year before they were eventually put back into the care of Cindy. So because of this information, and again, I'm not sure if there are any other incidents that I have just not been able to find, I managed to get in contact with Noel's biological father in Mexico on March 23rd, just a few days after the initial welfare check, just to make sure Noel was safe and in good hands, like Cindy had claimed. And to their shock, this man had absolutely no idea what they were talking about. Why do I feel like we've heard this exact same thing before? According to Noel's biological father, he had never even met Noel. He was deported back to Mexico before Noel was born, and since then had not had the opportunity to meet him, come and see him. And so obviously they're like, okay, wait a minute. If Noel's not with you, like his mother is claiming, and she's the one with sole care of Noel, then where on earth is he? And why on earth did she seemingly lie about it? So obviously they wanted to make sure that what Noel's biological father was saying was also true. And they were in fact able to corroborate the date that he said he was deported, the fact that it didn't seem Noel had ever gone into Mexico to see him. So at this point, Noel is technically missing, and no one seems to have any answers, a time that he went missing, absolutely nothing at all. Right away, authorities attempted to get back into contact with Cindy because they needed some sort of clarity here. You told us your son is in Mexico, and now the person that you're saying he was with has absolutely no idea what you're talking about. But nobody was able to reach her or locate her. And with Noel having the medical history that he does, along with these very strange circumstances surrounding his disappearance, on March 25th, it was decided that an Amber Alert would be released for Noel, despite the fact that he didn't necessarily meet the criteria, just hoping that it would get all eyes out there. They needed as much attention on this as possible because something was very, very wrong. Meanwhile, authorities are trying to piece together what little information they had to make sense of what was going on, and they continued to try and locate Cindy to absolutely no avail. And what they did find did not at all paint a good picture. Noel was not enrolled in school, so there really wasn't any good way to track the last time he was seen that way, so they tried to reach out to any family members, friends, anyone possible to try to narrow down a timeline of the last time Noel was seen. According to everyone they spoke to, Noel was last seen in late October to early November of 2022. So despite the fact that this was a recent CPS call of concern in March of 2023, it had actually been around 6 months or so since someone other than Cindy had seen Noel. And when all of these people were asked what they were told about Noel, why he wasn't around, where this child was, Cindy gave them conflicting stories to explain his absence. So authorities, first and foremost, really wanted wanted to be able to question Charles Parson because despite the fact that he was not technically a family member, he had been living with this family, with Noel, under the same roof, or at least on the same property since Noel was born. And maybe he could give some sort of insight, a better timeline, something. Now, Charles ended up telling authorities that he had not seen Noel since sometime in November. I think he had specifically stated Thanksgiving. However, it has been proven that there's absolutely no way that timeline is true. But he did say that he too had been told by Cindy that Noel had been taken to live with his biological father in Mexico. But from there, the story completely changes. Cindy had told Charles that when she took Noel to be with his biological father, his father actually refused him. And so Noel was sent to live with his aunt in Mexico instead. Now,
suspicious when Noel just wasn't around back in November.
No, she told me that she had taken him to the boy's daddy and that he didn't want him, but the sister did want him, what I was told. So
where's the sister? Is she in the area or is she back in Mexico? Do you know anything about
you know what? She wasn't gone long enough not to take him to Mexico, but the sister lives in Mexico. But I also remember back 10 years ago, I took him to his, when they first had problems, I took him to somebody's house and it was in Fort Worth, and I think that was his family. So that was before he got deported. So I really don't know. I have no idea where it was. I can't remember that. I mean, it wasn't important to me.
When she told you that the kid was in Mexico, when she told you the kid was in Mexico, did you believe her? Did you see that?
I didn't question her. I mean, they're her kids. I couldn't do anything.
Charles has claimed that Cindy and Arshdeep are both incredible parents, that they spoil their children nonstop with clothing, toys, there's a trampoline in the yard, a play set. He said that all of the kids are very well taken care of, they all get great grades, but he has stated as well that Noel has been a challenge for both parents. According to Charles, and I don't know if this is something that he was simply told by Cindy or something that he witnessed himself, but after the twins were born in October, Noel became very jealous of them. And he apparently was acting out in multiple ways. He was refusing to eat, and this led to him dropping a lot of weight. However, others had been given an entirely different story altogether by Cindy, and it took things to a whole new level. Cindy's brother came forward and spoke to authorities about what he and his mother had allegedly been told by Cindy. And he also expressed his very, very serious concerns about what may have really happened to Noel and his worry for his well-being.
Izzy, this is a big story. People have tons of questions, and up until now, virtually had no answers. Details in this newly obtained search warrant, though, could answer some. According to the court document, Cindy Rodriguez Singh, Noel's mother, told her mother she sold her son to someone at a Fiesta Market store. Relatives said Rodriguez Singh abused Noel, even told someone in her family once not to give her son any water because she didn't want to clean up after his dirty diaper. The document also says another relative told police he saw Rodriguez Singh hit Noel with car keys attached to a lanyard.
They both panicked and attempted to get Cindy to reach out to this woman to check on Noel. But allegedly, Cindy refused to do this, saying something about being worried CPS would get involved. This is just not looking like a great situation. We have claims of abuse against this young, disabled, missing child. We also have multiple varying stories, all given by a mother who, right off the bat, obviously lied to authorities about where her son was, and now is absolutely nowhere to be found. So just a day after this Amber Alert was released, on March 26th, it ended up being canceled and replaced with an endangered child alert, along with a bolo that was put out for Cindy and her family, because authorities desperately needed some sort of answers to this bizarre situation. So along with photos of Noel and Pleas for tips circulating the media like crazy, the public was also asked to look out for Cindy driving her 2012 gray Chevy Silverado truck, and it had a very large picture across the back window of Santa Muerte, which I will get into in a little bit. And they said that she likely would have her 6 remaining children that were in her care with her 2 5-month-old twins, along with a 7, 8, 9, and 11-year-old. Thankfully, probably because of the large sticker across the back of her truck, it was only a matter of hours hours before her car was located in a very unexpected place: the Dallas-Fort Worth Airport. I feel like we all already know exactly where this is going. Authorities immediately arrived on scene. They wanted to be able to search this car, figure out if it had any sort of clues inside, any information that may give them some sort of direction to go in. And what they found was shocking. Inside of the car, there was an electronic visa that belonged to one of the children. And when they looked into this visa, they found that it had been obtained just a day after the welfare check on Noel. And so then they scrambled to get in contact with the airline and found that, sure enough, Cindy, her husband Arshdeep, and the 6 remaining children had fled the country March 22nd. Just 2 days after, questions started being raised about Noel's well-being. And they had flown from the United States to Turkey and then from Turkey to India. Why on earth would a family flee the country when one of their children is missing, unless there is something so very wrong going on here? And so due to this, the FBI as well as Homeland Security joined in on the investigation. And I will say that Everman Police Department is incredibly small. I believe I have heard Police Chief Spencer say there's only about 18 people. And so thankfully, everyone possible, including surrounding agencies, have stepped up to help out as much as they possibly can, because this is such a serious situation. The gravity of what may have possibly happened led authorities to bring cadaver dogs immediately out to Wisteria Drive to check and see if there was any sort of hit, if potentially something happened to Noel on that property. And reporters also flocked the home because everyone obviously had questions. Everyone wanted to know what could have possibly gone wrong here. Charles Parson did a handful of interviews with the media during this time, giving his perspective on the situation, and he still was very adamant again that the family had done absolutely nothing wrong. And the way that he seemed to see it, he felt that Cindy had fled with her family simply out of fear, that it had destroyed her when her children had been taken from her by CPS a couple of years prior, and that it was not something that she wanted to have to go through again.
But you know why she had all those plans, she suddenly up and left?
Scared that she was going to go to prison for 8 years and then not watch her kids grow up. Her twin, you take away from her twins, she ain't going to get to see them if she goes to prison.
She was scared that she was going to go to prison because
Noel was
missing?
Yeah, because that and CPS is going to come take her kids to start off with. You know that with Noel missing, they're going to take the kids. And now people are saying she was abusive. I've never seen her abuse Noel or any of the kids.
And you're the homeowner?
I'm the homeowner. I've been here 10 years. I worked most of the time when she was here.
She didn't tell you that she was leaving? Like, she didn't give you any heads
No,
up? She just up and left?
not at all. She just up and left. Left me at the hospital by myself,
You mentioned that the phones were taken
Phones
away.
were all cut off. That's when I knew something was up, man. I was panicky being in the hospital. They wouldn't let me go. They wouldn't release me. And, that's not a good... Oh, my duck.
Police here are looking for her there.
Huh?
Police here are looking for her there in India. She's charged with a crime.
Yeah.
What would you want her to know? What would you tell her if you could speak to her?
I would ask her... I wished I would have been here. I think I could have talked her out of going, but I wasn't here. And her husband's from over there. I don't know what kind of story it is. I don't know how they're going to hide it. I don't know nothing about expedition or whatever, how they're going to get them.
And you said Charles Parsons?
Yeah.
Parsons?
P-A-R-S-O-N. Yeah.
And again, everybody hears some version of this story and can't quite make hide or hail.
Yeah.
You're at least several steps closer to it than we are. What don't people who hear about this understand about these people we're talking about? What don't we know?
That they were good. They're good parents. I mean, they love their kids. They really love their kids. Why would you can check the kids' grades in school? The girl was making straight A's. The boy was a B student. She got another girl that was an A student. Does that sound like kids that are being abusive? You go back there and see all the toys they got. They got more toys that I'm going to end up throwing away than a man can shake a fist at. They're not rich.
You can't speak for her, so I'm not
No, I
asking you
can't,
to.
yeah.
If she took her son to Mexico, or to someone who took him to Mexico,
Yeah.
why the secrecy? Why the?
I can't tell you. I don't know. Because she's afraid she's going to lose her other kids. That's why.
Regardless, by March 30th, felony warrants were issued for both Cindy and Arshdeep, accompanying charges of abandonment and endangering a child. Because at the absolute bare minimum, they knew that Noel was missing and had lied about his whereabouts to authorities, to multiple people that asked questions. And they were no longer cooperating with the investigation. And that in itself is unacceptable. But until they could locate Cindy and Arshdeep to hopefully get some sort of answers, the investigation continued. Noel was found to not be with any family members. Obviously, it had already been confirmed he was not in Mexico. They double and triple checked to make sure this was not a possibility, and he was not. And because of the claims that Cindy had made to her brother and mother, they also made sure to check and see if Noel had been sold to this strange woman at the Fiesta Market. And thankfully, they were able to ultimately rule that out, but they were not letting any tip, no matter how wild it sounded, go unchecked. It was also announced at this point by the police chief that they believed Cindy had purposely misguided authorities. Relatives had basically coached people into saying certain things to throw off timelines, dates, basically any sort of potential investigation. This was a lot more planned than they, I think, initially realized.
Yesterday you talked about some family members giving you information about seeing Noel a bit more recently than November, but that information proved to be false. And you said you were looking in to see whether or not that was intentionally delivered as a false statement.
Yeah.
Has anything come from that in the past 24 hours?
Yeah, I don't, without revealing too much of the investigation, we think that those were coached statements that were provided to us, and not necessarily with an intent on the individual providing those statements to us of being deceitful, but just the fact that they were coached to tell us that.
So potentially, just to make sure we're clear, information potentially given from, is it the mother, or who was that given from to steer them in a certain direction?
We believe the mother.
But you don't
to try to steer us.
who gave you that information had any indication that that was actually
Correct. We got to be, I want to be very careful as we proceed with this. This is obviously becoming more and more concerning. We're on day 5 since we've been notified of this and have been working this as a police department. So I want to be very careful as we proceed about how much I state regarding the investigation itself, because I certainly don't want to hinder any prosecution that may come from this. And I can tell you the teams that are on here, yes, it is swinging more towards a criminal investigation. We do have supporting circumstantial evidence and things that are leading us that direction. So we're certainly taking that path. I mentioned the other day that we haven't had any physical evidence that has come up. That doesn't mean that we're not doing our job and that we're not going out there pursuing what we need to be pursuing. It just means that the physical evidence hasn't been present. There's certainly a significant amount of circumstantial evidence. I mean, when we talk about the circumstances surrounding this case, everybody's suspicion rises, and that's what we do as a police department. Obviously, our suspicion has rose as well, so we have to dig deeper, and everything we've been coming across primarily has been circumstantial evidence. So, we're doing things now with this investigation to obtain more physical evidence, more concrete evidence through other means, data collection, and those sorts of things that we traditionally do in law enforcement. And now we've got the support to do that, so we're happy to move that forward.
Is that arrest warrant giving you more leeway, so to speak, to pursue things internationally? You have a crime. She's
Sure.
wanted for a crime now. So does that enable you to interact with federal liaisons more so to maybe pursue where you believe they are?
Yeah, sure. So we're actively engaged now with our federal partners at Homeland Security. We began engagement earlier today with the FBI. We are starting to work with other partners on this. Everman is obviously still the lead on this, but we're working with them and we have their support on that. The arrest warrant itself doesn't play too much into that. The charge that the arrest warrant's issued for is obviously for a false report regarding a missing child. That's a misdemeanor in the state of Texas, so that doesn't really throw a whole bunch of red flags up as far as getting federal assistance, or when we start talking about extradition. I don't think we're going to do cross-country extradition on a misdemeanor warrant out of Texas. But there's also a probation violation warrant. There's other things that are moving this forward. The evidence that we've been collecting, the circumstantial evidence, and there's things I just can't go into regarding it for the protection of the investigation, but the circumstantial evidence that's coming up is certainly amounting to a level that becomes criminal, and so it's giving us the ammunition that we need to be able to keep pressing this forward. Like I mentioned the other day, that's the whole point in us wanting to be as meticulous as we can with these searches and going back and double checking and triple checking and making sure that we're as thorough as we can be, is to find, even if it is circumstantial evidence, enough circumstantial evidence to give us the ammunition we need to push this forward. We've had great groups step up, law enforcement, and not just in DFW, but all across the state. We work well together. And so we've had investigative specialists from other agencies that have offered to step up. We've had groups from other agencies that have offered to step up and assist us with this. So the investigative team is really, really broad. We're talking, not just local level, but state level, now federal level that are becoming a part of this. And truly, it's really formed into really a task force consisting of investigators that all specialize in these kind of very convoluted and problematic cases that are traditionally hard to investigate. So we're happy to have anybody within the field that has an expertise in this field to come to the table and be a part of the solution here. Because ultimately the goal is to find
that authorities specifically stated that the past few months this family had spent covering up their tracks. So by April 6th, it was announced that this was no longer a missing persons investigation. It was a death investigation. Authorities revealed that the largest part of their investigation to this point seemed to be data collection. This is where they were getting majority of their information. This is one of those times where I am just so beyond thankful for the internet, for phones, for all of the data logs that we have. Chief Spencer said, quote, "The investigative team is trying to immerse themselves in the lives of Cindy and Arshdeep and the family over the last 6 months to find out every move they made. Try to figure out what their patterns were, because we have to identify what was different, what kinds of anomalies occurred in their life, and figure out what caused those anomalies and most likely the death of Noel." Now, it ended up being found that Noel had not been attending his regularly scheduled doctor's appointments since July of 2022. So clearly, around this time, something was going on. From that point on, he missed quite a handful of appointments, to the point that a letter was sent to Cindy threatening to take her benefits away if Noel was not brought in. And in an attempt to get to the bottom of Noel missing these appointments, to make sure that Noel didn't potentially go missing earlier than they thought, they ended up being told by a witness that Cindy was very obviously ruffled by this letter that was sent and this threat of losing money, to the point that she actually asked one of her friends to borrow their son to pose as Noel for an appointment in late October, all to ensure that these checks kept on coming. And so clearly by this point in October, Noel was no longer around. And again, this helped narrow things down even further. Cindy gave birth to the twins in October as well. And about a week after their birth was the very last confirmed sighting of Noel that authorities could find. And apparently these witnesses claimed that Noel looked absolutely awful. He was clearly malnourished. He had not been fed or was not eating. He appeared very unhealthy. And this was absolutely gut-wrenching for authorities to hear. And even scarier, during this same exact time period, witnesses came forward saying that Cindy was going around telling people that she believed Noel was possessed, that he was evil, he was the devil, and that she feared he would harm the twins. And then suddenly Noel was gone. And as if this isn't enough to show that something clearly was going on during this time period, even more data stacked up to support this. During this last week of October, after all of these bizarre things happened, all of the strange things that Cindy was saying, on November 1st, 2022, Cindy suddenly actually had passport pictures taken of 6 out of her 7 children, with Noel being the one left out. He was the only one without a passport photo taken. November 2nd, she applied for passports, again leaving out Noel, and days later on November 6th, her search history showed that she was looking up the cost of trips to India. So this whole plan to leave the country had been in the works since November. Authorities were also able to find that just after they went to the home on Wisteria Drive to question Cindy about Noel's whereabouts, she right away went to the school that 4 of her children attended and withdrew them. And just hours before the family boarded a flight to flee the country, Arshdeep stole $10,000 from his place of employment. Arshdeep worked for a company that ran multiple convenience stores, and they ended up coming forward saying that he fully had access to a handful of different safes. And so that day that they left the country, Arshdeep showed up, stole $10,000. From there, immediately went to a bank, and this is all caught on surveillance, where he put $8,000 into his bank account and left with the remaining $2,000 in cash. Then they were gone. Search and rescue teams at this point seemed to turn all of their focus to the family home and surrounding areas, while constant pleas were made to the public for tips. And this led to yet another terrifying discovery. Someone called in to report that just the day after the welfare check, they had witnessed Arshdeep throwing a carpet away in a nearby dumpster. Worried that this carpet may be of some sort of evidentiary value, authorities immediately went out to the scene to try and locate it, which thankfully they did. I'm honestly so thankful at the level of assistance the public has been able to give so far, and handing over information and tips. But to their horror, once they managed to recover this carpet and put it in front of cadaver dogs made a hit. And not just that, this carpet was also linked to another anomaly that authorities had already been a little suspicious about. That carpet had once sat on the floor of a shed off the main house on the property on Wisteria Drive. And the previous month, I believe just 3 weeks prior, that shed had been torn down, and Cindy had paid $5,000 to have a concrete slab poured in its place. According to documents released, Cindy had wanted this contractor to get this job done as quickly as possible. She all of a sudden wanted this concrete slab to be poured, and she repeatedly changed exactly what she wanted. Specifically, she kept asking for the concrete to be poured thicker at one end of the slab. And so this was definitely a little alarming. And when authorities first went to check the entire property and were told that this concrete slab had been poured pretty fresh, this is something they wanted to look into.
There are so many questions, and a lot of questions I get asked are the same questions that we want to ask her, right? I mean, and we need to talk to her. And so she's been out of the country. Surely she knows this is going on. Surely she knows that we're looking for Noel. And had there not have been anything suspicious, or had there been a reasonable explanation for this, she would have thought somebody would have reached out and told us that. We haven't had that conversation.
Obviously, fresh poured concrete in a case like this is a pretty large red flag. So authorities had already been looking into this. But now knowing that this carpet that cadaver dogs had hit on once sat where that slab was freshly poured weeks prior, we're just not getting any good news here. When authorities had initially found that this concrete had recently been poured, they brought in sonar to check underneath, and ultimately the sonar didn't pick anything up. But just in case, they decided to chip off a few pieces of the concrete to be looked into. But with this new information they were getting, they decided to bring the cadaver dogs back to the house, and on April 10th, the entire concrete slab was torn up to check for potential evidence underneath. Unsure if the dogs ever hit on the concrete itself, but allegedly, once they started pulling away pieces of this new concrete slab to reveal dirt underneath, the dogs were alerting to all of that dirt, to the extent that they were actually following the dirt that was being hauled away for forensic testing. And so this was a very, very bad sign that it was highly likely there had been a body in this location. Charles Parson, however, was obviously at the home when all of this was going on and speaking to reporters, and he very clearly stated that he believed authorities were simply digging up this concrete slab and basically destroying his backyard because they were desperate and they had absolutely nothing else.
Yeah, good morning, Lauren. So just a few minutes ago, we got our first look at the backyard of this property where crews spent hours digging up a concrete patio. Now, they were looking for clues in the disappearance of 6-year-old Noel Rodriguez Alvarez, but did not find a body or any other evidence here. But the homeowner allowed us to go inside and see the aftermath of hours of digging. That search began last week when investigators dug up small pieces of concrete. Now, Everman police hoped removing the entire patio would lead to some answers or Noel's exact location. They say the boy's mother, Cindy Rodriguez Singh, paid to have the patio installed last month. That happened just before police say she fled the country to India with her husband and 6 of Noel's siblings. Now, police said yesterday they found that odd. The man who owns this home, Charles Parson, told me just a few minutes ago he did not think there was anything suspicious about it. He was frustrated, saying despite the new developments in this investigation, he still believes Noel is alive.
And I kept telling him the slab was poured after Noel supposedly had disappeared. You know, I mean, why would he be underneath the slab? I think they just tore it up because they don't have no idea where the boy is and they're frustrated.
But why was the slab poured and then the family immediately left?
Because she built the slab because, you know, she had the twins. She wanted to build a patio so the twins would have someplace she could sit in the patio and watch her kids play on the trampoline and the swings back there during the summer. But she eventually was going to add another room to the back of the house because her oldest daughter, the one that was with her now, not her oldest, but the one that lived with her, was going to need a room. She wanted a room, build a room. That's why it was heavy on one end. They kept saying it was heavy on one end because she was actually going to build another room back there.
But you know why?
But authorities made it very clear that they were doing more than just grasping at straws. And after their entire investigation, while they haven't revealed if anything in specific was found underneath the concrete slab, I know there were no remains or anything like that found, they did formally announce that it was their strong belief, based on all of the evidence that they gathered, that that carpet that had been tossed out by Archdeep did in fact have human remains on it at some point. Searches in the area continued on horseback with drones. Texar was also methodically searching areas to the east and north of the property. And it was announced that during all of these searches, there were certain things that had been found and sent off for forensic testing, but it's still unclear if any of it solidly links to Noel. Chief Spencer said, quote, "They have had so much time to destroy, hide, get rid of evidence, and so we've got to overcome that. But I've got confidence in the investigative team." On April 14th, searches were called off temporarily due to new data that was found. And on April 22nd, searches resumed. I believe that they did initially go back to the home on Wisteria Drive, and they also searched a handful of new areas within a few square miles of the home. Haven't seen so far this week if there have been any other searches or specific locations authorities are looking into, but I at the very least know they are combing through as much as they possibly can to continue this search. And again, they have stated at this point they are looking for a body. By the very end of April, it was also announced that Cindy was known to worship Santa Muerte, which could have some sort of bearing on what her mental state was at the time. And authorities said that when they went into her home, they immediately knew all of the different symbols and the shrine that they uncovered because it is something they deal with frequently. Authorities believe that Cindy worshiping Santa Muerte, also known as Saint Death, is concerning because to many it is seen as a cult, and it is most commonly connected to cartels and trafficking of all sorts. And from my very little research, it seems there are like two camps here of those who believe this is absolutely cult activity and it's basically worshiping death, very satanic. And then there's others that believe that this is very symbolic and important to those that are outcasts. And so it's really hard to kind of understand exactly what everyone personally believes Santa Muerte represents. But at its very basic form, it seems that Santa Muerte essentially offers protection to those that that are involved in very nefarious activities. It's also associated with safe delivery to the afterlife. So I'm very interested to see if any of you have any personal knowledge when it comes to Santa Muerte. I definitely think it's a little alarming hearing that there is a shrine, very obvious worship of Saint Death, when Cindy was also known to last be speaking about how she believed Noel was possessed. I don't know, but it also brings up these questions that I have about, postpartum psychosis, postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety. If Cindy had just gone on to give birth to twins, was her mental state more influenced by hormonal imbalances? I just feel like there's so many different things that could have potentially been going on here. While many have remained silent, in the past few weeks, Cindy's mother has finally come forward and publicly made a plea for Cindy to come back and speak to police. As I stated in the beginning of the video, she is currently caring for Cindy's 3 eldest children, and I cannot imagine how any of them are currently feeling at the moment. But Cindy's mother has stated that she is shocked and absolutely devastated at what is going on. And she cannot believe that Cindy has fled the country and is not participating in the search for her own son. Noel's foster family that he had lived with for about a year has also come forward and expressed how heartbroken they are and the disbelief they have watching all of this unfold. And they also so far have been the only ones to really shed any sort of light on Noel. They've got videos, they've provided photos, all of these different things that show Noel just smiling and laughing and being a 6-year-old little boy.
He was small but mighty. A playful boy who always had a toy in hand, a smile on his face, and a giggle that filled the house with joy.
That was my son. That was my baby. Noel way over there. Look.
Back in 2020, Patricia Paris fostered Noel Rodriguez Alvarez.
Wherever I went, he was like my shadow.
And in 1 year, they formed a special bond.
That was my buddy. My cool dude.
Noel, look at the camera.
And they shared memories she can't forget.
You want a burger?
Yep. I would say, Sweet Pea. He would say, Mommy. I would say, no, Noel, I'm not your mom. I'm Sweet Pea. He'd say, no, you're Mommy.
And that's why when Everman police announced the boy, who hasn't been seen since November, is believed to be deceased.
And I still couldn't believe it.
Can't believe the boy she watched overcome so much despite his disabilities is gone.
What's that been like every day for you?
It's been very stressful. Every time I pass by a wooded area or a bunch of trees, side of the road, I say, is he over here? He needs to be found so he can be laid to rest.
Paris says Noel's mother, Cindy Rodriguez Singh, had a support system.
She could have given us to us. We asked for him.
The idea that he's gone is starting to set in for the Paris family.
He's gonna be okay. You're okay.
And together, they're trying to hold each other up.
We showed him love while we had him, right?
He was a huge part of their family, and his foster mom also even stated that she had asked to continue caring for Noel as well, just like Noel's grandmother had, and she was denied. So this is what I think is upsetting so many people at this point, especially those close to the situation, because if there had been any problems, if managing Noel's care had gone wrong, if there was something going on, there were multiple options. There were so many people with outstretched arms trying to help, a whole support system willing to lend a hand to take Noel in. No one can understand what could have possibly gone wrong here. As of this video being posted, authorities are still pushing for tips and heavily relying on the public to get the story out as far and wide as possible. They have done amazing work with the little information that they have, and we need to be able to support them as much as possible. They seem to be very, very active with the community and putting information out there as to what they're finding, the current status of the investigation, and ways in which you can help. So this is definitely one to set your alerts for and keep an eye on. The FBI is also continuing to work on the case alongside Homeland Security to hopefully locate Cindy and Arshdeep. They're hoping they can find them and extradite them back to the US to answer some sort of questions and face the charges that they have so far. But they have stated, which was my largest question, that that they don't have any reason to believe so far that the other remaining children are in any sort of immediate danger. Honestly, at this point, I can only cross my fingers and hope that that is the truth. So far, neither Cindy or Arshdeep have been labeled as persons of interest or suspect in the presumed death of Noel, but they definitely do have information that they are not being forthcoming with. And so authorities are wanting to speak to them as soon as they possibly can to get to the bottom of what is going on. As always, I will have all of the information listed down below. If you have any information whatsoever about the disappearance and presumed death of Noel, if you have any information on the whereabouts of either Cindy or Arshdeep, it's almost unbelievable that this case has so many striking similarities to other cases out there. It's like it's following the exact same patterns, and I don't know if that's something that is comforting because maybe those patterns can be followed, or if it's absolutely devastating because we kind of know where this is probably going to end. Regardless, I have so much faith that Everman Police Department, along with all investigating agencies, will eventually figure out what exactly happened to Noel. Please make sure to share the story far and wide. I feel like this case is the epitome of how powerful social media and the internet can be, which is the very least that Noel deserves. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to listen to Noel's story. I will make sure to try to keep you guys as updated as possible on this case. And as always, if you hear anything before I do, feel free to reach out to me and let me know. If you haven't already, go ahead and hit the subscribe button down below to become a part of the Hallen fam so that we can hopefully bring them home together or bring them justice together. And I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.